Listeners be advised. The Soliloquy podcast discuss matters related to the human experience and many that are sexual in nature. Due to this, some conversations may surround triggering topics such as sexual violence, self-harm, abuse, and much more. Please be advised, a list of crisis and psychological resources will be available in the show notes of this episode. With that said, let's get started with the show.
Ladies and gentlemen, may I have your attention please as we go through the following safety instructions.
In the event that there is a loss of cabin pressure, oxygen mask will drop from the overhead. Place the mask over your nose and mouth. Breathe normally as oxygen is flowing even if the mask is not inflated. Be sure to adjust your own mask before helping others.
Hello, everyone. Oh, Lord, I already messed up. Oh, my God. Oh, God. Yeah, this is the podcast and where you gotta love it. You got to love it. All right. Oh, wait. Okay, I'm here. Welcome to the Soliloquy podcast, right? Welcome to the Soliloquy podcast, where we step out and speak on sexuality. This is your favorite host, Vernon T. Scott, also known as Slaytor Jackson, and for you freaky motherfuckers out there, Sebastian Adams. On today's episode, we are mixing up some topics. We're talking about preferences as well as ideal relationships. And the person I have with me today is Wesley. How are you doing today, good sir?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm doing fantastic. I guess a little bit jumbled up a little bit, but life is still good. So, with you being new to the podcast, this is your first time on. Do you mind introducing yourself to the listeners? Let them know what you do. Let them know about your podcast that's out.
Sure. So my name is Wesley Toma. I am a certified relationship and intimacy coach. I specialize in the LGBTQIA plus and the kink communities. And depending on when this episode will actually come out, I also am doing a podcast with another life coach, Laura Sweetman. Excuse me. It's called These Queer Stories, and that'll be out. I believe we're going to do once a week, and that's going to basically be stories about queer, coming out as queer and living our lives queer and just kind of helping people be their true authentic selves.
Ooh, sounds beautiful. And wait, so that means you're in that group. So we're in the same thing. Oh my gosh, how did I not put those things together? Because I've actually interviewed Lori, so she has some episodes on here too. Oh my gosh, I see. This is why I need to pay more attention to the Discord.
It's funny because she messaged me. She's like, "Oh my God, you need to talk to this person. They're amazing." And then she sent me your link, and I'm like, "Oh, I'm already scheduled for that one."
Look at that. God, I love Lori.
She's great.
So by this point, because Lori's episode is definitely coming out, I think it's 2 weeks before this one. So the listeners would have already listened to her, then they listened to you, and now look, you got mashed together and join them on their platform, listen to their episodes. And I think because this is actually going to be airing in March, and sorry people, it's November right now, technically November. So if you are a fan and you've been around and you know about Hovember, you know what's going on this month. And yes, I am recording. So yes, look at that. That is beautiful. I love it. Okay, so now that we got that out of the way, let's get into the juiciness of this conversation, because I remember in our intake meeting, one of the things that we were talking about is within the kink spectrum, within you meeting with new people, how you match preferences, understanding what their likes, your likes, and having that conversation. What does that look like for somebody who's never been to never engaged in those kind of conversations with the partner, be it outside of kink or incorporating kinks?
Well, one thing that I always say is within kink, some of the things we do in kink is I think are very useful for the vanilla world, as we call it, for those normies out there that don't like to have fun when they have sex, I guess. I'm just kidding. Um,
We love
but
vanilla.
of course, so a lot of things that we do in kink, and I know I've talked to a lot of kinksters who also agree with this. We are very big on consent. We're very big on communication. We're very big on negotiation. We want to talk through things. I don't. I've been married for 10 years, and I still will negotiate sometimes with my husband. We just opened our relationship recently, and anybody I meet with, I'm having a negotiation, whether we're doing a kink scene or we're just gonna get naked and have fun. I'm gonna negotiate, and a lot of people find that very surprising. When I'm like, no, I don't want to just jump into bed and have sex. I want to know what you want, what are not good to go, what are you not going to do, what are the hard stops, and I want to know what it's going to look like when we're done. Like, are you gonna fuck them and flee, or are we gonna talk and cuddle? Like, I want to know this stuff ahead of time so I can prepare for it.
Exactly. And like I even find that in whenever I engage with people outside of kink relationships, is that like just having that conversation, like what are your likes, what do you like to do during sex, and the only thing that they can say is like their sexual position, sexual role, or something like that. But I'm like, okay, outside of that, what are some of the things that you like to do to other people, as well as what do you want done to you? Because I want this engagement that we're in to be mutually pleasurable, because I don't want you to feel as though that you're left out, and I'm definitely not going to meet up if I'm going to be left out. I'm just being real. Like I want to make sure that by the end of this exchange we both walk away feeling satisfied. And I always provide aftercare, even if like if someone just doesn't need it and they just end up like, okay, we've done that, I'm out, cool, that's great. But outside of those people who are immediately trying to leave, or they've gotten theirs or what have you, I love to just sit down, have a conversation, check in, see how they're doing. Just like, did you have a good time? I had a good time. What did you like? What didn't you like? Is this something that you now feel as though is going to be an ongoing thing? Because first off, I rarely meet up with any person that is not trying to do anything ongoing. But at the same time, after you have that initial sexual experience together, there's a shift. Rather, okay, I did not like it as much as I thought I would, so we're not, or I actually did enjoy this and I do want to meet up more often. So it's like having those conversations with people, and that's just a huge surprise for some people. Like, I've had sexual partners that I've been intimate with like years ago, and they're just like, yeah, ever since the time that we met up, I've never gotten that same experience from anybody. Like,
Yeah.
like, demand it, like or
Yeah. And I'll even say, during that time, I look for constructive criticism, because I know I'm not perfect. I'm not the perfect lover, and I know I don't do everything the way everybody, there's no such thing as a perfect lover, because everyone's body's differently, everyone feels things differently anyway. So what I've been used to, I know my husband, I've known him for 12 years now, so I know what he likes. I don't know what these random people that I'm meeting up like, so I need to learn. So I like criticisms, because it helps me learn to be that better person, to be that better partner. So I love having those conversations afterwards. I love having this, just sit there and just kind of relax, maybe a little cuddling, just some chatting. How was it? How you doing? How do you feel? That was great. This is whatever. Those conversations for me are sometimes just as fulfilling as the actual encounter itself. And like, on the same side of it, I've been with the guys who've been like, well, I'm just going to leave. I'm just going to go. I'm like, okay, that's fine. As long as I knew that ahead of time, then I can, say, like, grab my husband and we can do aftercare together. Because, I'm going to need aftercare. If it's a scene or not, no matter what part you're playing, no matter what position you're in, you need some sort of aftercare. So if I'm not going to get it from them, I'm going to get I want my aftercare.
Right. Oh, that would be very amazing if there was like an app for aftercare. You know what? Let me
Wouldn't it
just
be?
go ahead and make that. There we go.
Trademark. No, it's still his idea.
Right. But like that, okay, get out of that mind space of this damn app. But like, those kind of conversations are definitely needed. And like, I really do hate that there's like people go into sexual spaces without pretext, without
Mhm.
understanding what people really want to do. Like the thing that really pisses me off is whenever I hear somebody say that, oh, they've been fucking all this time. They supposed to know what to do. They should know what to do. And I'm like, I don't know your body.
Yeah.
I'm just meeting you. Like, yes, because of my educational background, because of my experiences with other people, I do know the majority of like erogenous zones on people. But at the same time, I don't know if this erogenous zone is going to turn you on or not. If you have a traumatic response because of this, like I need to know these things. Like
Mhm.
there was a podcaster that I was speaking to named Mill, and she was like, there was a point in time she did not like it when her sexual partner slapped her on her ass because of some of the abuse that she's experienced in her past.
Mhm.
So it's like we have to have these conversations to know that, oh, I cannot slap this person on the ass. I cannot suck this person's dick. I cannot suck on this person's clit or eat their ass or whatever the case is. Or
Mhm.
I need to apply soft suctions on nipples, or I can bite as hard as I want. These
Yep.
conversations are important.
Very important. And these conversations should also happen during the act, not
Mhm.
not in terms of negotiation, but in terms of like how you feel, how does that feel, how does that work for you? Because just like what you were saying, I enjoy oral sex. I enjoy giving, I enjoy receiving. I particularly enjoy giving, and I've had partners where you play with the tip and you suck on the tip a little bit, and they love that. And I've had partners that are like, that's just too sensitive for them. And it's not like I don't know what I'm doing. It's just, like you said, every body is different. And if I just kept doing that and I wasn't told, or I wasn't told ahead of time, I'm not going to know better, and you're going to have a bad experience. And I don't want you to have a bad experience, and you shouldn't have a bad experience.
Like that triggered a memory of a former sexual partner of mine who lives in Atlanta that every now and again when I do visit, I do meet up with this person. And I'm not a huge fan of sucking dick, but I
Mhm.
would do it for certain people. Most definitely, like if there's a pretty dick and like this person
Yeah.
actually does have a pretty dick, I'm just like, yes, I will do that for you. But this same person doesn't like to have his dick sucked.
Right.
However, now things are different because he was more on the penetration side of things, like anal play. And now that I guess over the last 2 years, he's like, yeah, I don't like penetration anymore. I just want people to suck my dick. And I'm like, where were you? Where was this person back when we were frequently seeing each other? Like, where was this person at? Like, I've been wanting to do this for so long, and now I don't even know if I want to do this for you.
which also brings up another point in relationships, that discussion should constantly happen, because you always
Mhm.
change. My
Exactly.
sexual preferences from 5 years ago, or even last year really, are different than they are now. They're not hugely different, but they're different. And I want different things now than I did then. So you need to keep continually, that's what I said, 10 years we've been married, and we still have these conversations, because we change, people evolve.
Mhm.
And if you don't talk about it, you're not gonna keep up with each other, and that's when things go bad.
Exactly, exactly. Another thing that we did talk about,
Mhm.
I think I brought this one up, was compromising in relationships, because I know for myself, I don't believe in compromising, but I do believe in negotiating and having these conversations, because for me, compromise requires sacrifice,
Mhm.
but you can easily agree on different things. Like, okay, if that's what you want to do, I'm comfortable with that. Enjoy what you want to do. I just don't have to be a part of that.
Mhm.
But making or having someone sacrifice something or reduce their capacity of experiencing themselves in full and whole way seems um, damaging, like it would damage the relationship eventually. So what is your sentiment upon based on what I just said in terms of compromising in relationships?
Yeah, I think there's a difference between compromising and consent,
Hmm.
in a way. Like I think some relationships, depending on the situation, there can be some quote unquote compromises, but I think it's more of just accepting the other person's boundaries. Like there is certain, like, we are part of the kink community, and I can fully say that I have some kinks that don't align with him, and he has some kinks that don't align with me.
Hmm.
And I don't feel like I'm compromising because we haven't done those things, but at the same time, when we do those things, I know that, we're making the effort for the other person because they enjoy it. So I see it as more of like boundaries. Like I know there are certain things that there are hard stops that I would like to do, but I know I can't do
Mhm.
that. And I'm fine with that. And I don't feel like I'm compromising. I don't feel like it's hurting my relationship. I feel like I'm respecting his boundaries
Mhm.
and he's respecting my boundaries. And, and in a way that's partially why we opened our relationship, because we were talking about it. We said these things we want, we don't care if we get them, but we do want them. So why
Mhm.
don't we find somebody who's willing to do those things for us, since we're not willing to do them for each other.
The Soliloquy podcast focuses on the variability of sexual expression. When it comes to sexual expression, we often depend on pornography to illustrate how one must perform sexually. For those who have not learned this by now, the stuff you see in porn is not real. Pornography provides a singular perspective of sexual expression that is not often the reality we see during our own sexual encounters. The Soliloquy podcast is a conversation that takes you outside of the compressed box of what many know about sex. Some of the topics we discuss includes kinks, condom usage, status disclosure, and past sexual experiences. The Soliloquy podcast steps out on sexual norms and recognizes that the norm is not the only normal. Subscribe today and join the conversation.
Why don't we find somebody who's willing to do those things for us, since we're not willing to do them for each other, and let somebody who does enjoy that stuff do that stuff. So, so I don't have to, so he doesn't have to.
Exactly. So you mentioned that B word. I'm not talking about bitch, but we love a bad bitch. We always love a bad bitch.
Who
But
doesn't?
boundaries.
Mhm.
So of course, within relationships, boundaries are important. It's definitely important to respect your partner's boundary and for your partner to respect your boundaries. Boundaries are necessary regardless of what the relationship is, be it family members, friends, co-workers, your intimate partners, children. Boundaries are important, and respecting them
Yes.
regardless of who the person may be is just as important. So how does one set a healthy boundary?
That's a tough question to answer, only because I think that it's from my experiences, it's partner to partner.
Mm-hmm.
I think the best blanket answer to give would be set the boundaries that you're both comfortable with,
Mm-hmm.
and be as honest and open as you can. Because if you're not, then there's a potential of not setting the boundaries where you need them to be.
Mm.
When you're not truthful with yourself, you can't be truthful with your partner. But what those boundaries are, obviously, it depends from partner to partner, from relationship to relationship, from day to day, But I think ultimately, as long as you can be truthful to you,
Mm-hmm.
and you can be open and honest and trust each other,
Mm-hmm.
Trust each other to accept, each other's limitations and not judge each other, then you can set whatever boundaries you need to. And I don't think it's going to be, I don't believe it would ever be an issue.
I agree. And I think like most definitely with boundaries and just a boundary conversations, like that's another phase of communication and
Mhm.
understanding how to communicate with your partner and with those people that you're involve yourself with. And also recognizing that boundaries do change. It's not
Mhm.
like a brick wall that's never going to go anywhere. Think of it more like Legos. Sometimes you want to dress it up a different way, add this block, take a block away, or make it into a whole nother design.
Mhm.
The boundaries are some things that are meant to change.
Mhm.
Yes, there are a such thing as fixed boundaries, but you
Mhm.
also have to understand what those fixed boundaries mean. And also, I will say in terms of my tip in terms of setting a healthy boundary is knowing when a boundary is based within an insecurity.
Mhm.
And when that boundary is set because there's a lack of trust in your partner too. Because I I get peeved every time I see someone make that comment that, oh, I cannot have my partner going outside looking all fine because I don't want other people to be going after them. And me personally, not to judge those people who do that. Again, look into yourself to see if that's an insecurity or if that's just the way that you want your relationships to be, whatever the case is. But for me, I don't mind if someone is attracted to my partner and they want to date them. I will literally watch them hit on somebody in front of me because I'm just like, oh, this poor child doesn't even know. Like, they're going home with me regardless, but enjoy. I want my partner to feel sexy on a regular basis. And if someone hitting on them in a public space makes them feel sexy, go for it. Because at the end of the day, I still find you sexy and other people find you sexy. And look, I'm here for it.
Do you know the term compersion?
Yes.
So for any of the listeners who may not know, compersion is basically deriving joy and pleasure from the joy and pleasure of others, in a nutshell. When we first talked about opening up, one of the things we talked about the potential of jealousy because there that could be a thing. I told what I told my husband was that I don't think the jealousy is going to be an issue on my side because the thought of him having fun, whether it's with me or not, the fact of him enjoying himself, having great pleasure, just brings such joy to my heart. Like I can remember when we first opened our relationship, the first person first partner he had that wasn't me. I was so elated for him. I felt so good. And then the partner left and I talked to him, like, tell me all about it. I want to hear about your great time. And, I've got such joy from it. And I think there's a lot of people out there that can learn that trait. Like you said, there are people that I don't want my partner going out all sexy looking because I don't want people looking at, fuck it, that's your partner they're looking at. You should be proud and you should let them be proud to be who they are. And you should be proud that you get to that partner is your partner and you get to be with them. Embrace the joy, embrace the compliments, embrace the happiness, and don't let it sour you, because what's going to happen if it sours you? It's going to eventually sour the relationship. It's going to end the relationship, and that the partner's just going to go with somebody who's going to treat them differently or not feel so negatively. And it's like nobody wins. Really, nobody wins in those situations when you're being jealous.
Exactly. Now, I think that's the saddest part of it, is that no one really wins because these streets are crazy, for one. Like, oh my God. It's a lot of people who are very insecure these days. Yeah. And there's people who are stressed out. There's people who just use sex as, a tool of escape and distraction from everything that they're going on. So there's a lot of energies you have to go against out in these streets these days. So it's like to have a partner feel as though that they just have to remove themselves from a relationship just because you're not seeing the beauty that they have, or you're jealous that other people are seeing the beauty that you don't want others to acknowledge, and you don't want to expose them to the public. If you're trying to hold them back, then it hurts for me, projecting my feelings onto them, but it hurts me to know that they had something and now they have to let that go, grieve that relationship, and go back out here and get into these situations where they either have to refine love, find something with just as much quality, and how many people that may entail until they discover that one person that they really do feel secure with. And that in itself is like a little bit heartbreaking. And then the person who caused that to happen, their guilt that they have to hold on to, the insecurity that stems from that because of their self-fulfilling prophecy of that, oh, they're just going to leave me for another person, but they left you because you wouldn't allow them to be beautiful in public. You wouldn't allow them to exist without having to bear the weight of your jealousy. So at the end of the day, yeah, you were the main reason why they left, but now you're grieving and feeling guilty of that relationship. And what else were they supposed to do?
Yeah. And I mean, there's no way of knowing, but that could have been potentially the love of your life. Had you just had a little bit more compersion, a little bit less, insecurity. And I get it. Insecurity it's a big deal. I have insecurities too. I think everyone does. But it's about how you let them control you. And if you let them ruin good things, who knows what that could have been,
Like I remember telling one of my former students, well, he was a staff member. He was working under me. He was in this mindset because there was this young lady who broke his heart. She like slept with his friend, and he really loved this girl and whatnot. And I told him, like, I understand your pain. I understand the hurt that you're feeling because of this act, but that woman, because his mindset is that, oh, I need to go out here and dog these bitches because these bitches is dogging me. So I pretty much was like, look, if you continue on that with that mindset and you go out here and you believe that every woman that you encounter is going to be that same person, that woman who hurt you, and you're so focused on dogging them and dogging them and dogging them, you're going to get to this one young lady who's going to put up with everything that you're doing, want to work things out, want to be with you, want to love you, and show you that I'm not that woman who hurt you. That is going to come to a point where she's broken and leave you. And that's when you realize that this was the one person that you always wanted, but she's no longer going to be comfortable or trust you enough because of the actions that you put her through. And no one can be at fault other than yourself because you wanted to treat her like the woman that hurt you. And just having that conversation made him realize that maybe I probably shouldn't operate in the space of hurt.
Yeah, I can tell you a story, and this is kind of advice a story that I usually give with some advice. When I first met my husband, he had recently come out of a very abusive style relationship. It wasn't physically abusive, but it was a very abusive relationship. So he had some certain mindsets about how people treat him, or how he should be treated, or how people react to certain things. And so when we first started dating, I would say something or I would do something, and he would say, well, most people do this or most people do that. And thankfully we could communicate, because we were able to figure out that it was his ex who caused them to have these feelings. And, I would constantly be like, I'm not him. I'm not him. I'm not going to treat you like he did. Not everyone is like that. Yes, there are people like that, and he's not the only one, but I'm not, and so the advice I usually give with that is communication is so important, because had we not had that communication, had we not been able to have those communications, he'd keep a mindset that, when I did certain things, I meant it this way. And then my dream life would have been destroyed because we couldn't talk to each other, because of past injuries. And on top of that, those people who sit there, and it's like your friend who says, well, she dogged me, so all these women dog and whatever, he's going to pass that on to whatever woman he's with. And that it's like a constant never ending cycle of damage and abuse and insecurities that builds and builds and builds. So you're not just hurting you, you're not just hurting your partner, you're hurting other people too. So don't, it's kind of like they say when something that I had to learn, being, a white guy, we perpetuate a lot of hate as white people. And it's not, I don't do it on purpose, but I know my family and I know where we come from. And I had to accept the fact that, I can perpetuate certain things because of my background. And I had to do everything I could to not be that person. So I kind of, in this kind of a similar vein, it's the same thing. It's like, get past those ideas of the way it should be and get into the ideas of where it needs to be.
Yes. And I think that's a good way to tie into the other topic that I wanted to get into, which, because, with the topic of this episode being ideal relationships, you actually mentioned how you don't really like that term of ideal relationships because no relationship is perfect. Because perfect relationships, they really do not exist. They do not. And I definitely do agree with that, because look, things have to be worked on. There's no perfect human being. Therefore, there will never be a perfect relationship. So what is your well, let me just do this. Um, go off. Like, speak your mind about how perfect relationships do not exist. Rant if
Okay.
you need to, go all in. You have the floor.
All right. Yeah. Like you said, I don't agree with the term perfect relationships. I feel like anything that's considered perfect is flawed just in its perfection.
Hmm.
I feel like that there's no such thing as perfect. There's no such thing as perfection. There are things that we can perceive as perfect. I definitely don't have the perfect marriage, but I have, in my opinion, a close to perfect marriage for me.
Mm-hmm.
But that doesn't mean it's a perfect marriage. I'm just content. I'm happy with what it is. So, and it's kind of what goes back, and I keep kind of twisting it into like a slightly political thing.
Good.
But this goes back into like when I was learning like allyship and DEI, because I'm also very strong in DEI and try to ally as much as I can. One of the things I was taught at the beginning is don't be a good person, be a good-ish person. Good people don't fail. You're gonna fail. Good people are perfect. You're not perfect. Good-ish people make mistakes, learn from their mistakes, and move on. And I think for me, it's the same thing with a relationship. You're not gonna have a perfect relationship. You're gonna make mistakes. The point isn't to not make them. The point is to learn from them and grow from them. Where I don't care how old you are, whether you're 20 or you're 80, you're still learning. You're still growing as a human being. And the second you stop trying to grow and trying to learn and think everything is good as it is when you create this quote unquote perfect relationship in your head. And that's when things start to fall apart.
Hmm. And I love that you mentioned that we are constantly growing, regardless of how old you are, you're still growing, you're still learning, you're still educating yourself. Because one of the things that I refuse to do, okay, sometimes I might slip it up and say it, but I try my best not to call myself grown. Like, I'm not trying to say I'm a grown adult. I like to say that I'm a growing adult because I'm still learning. Like, sometimes I am in a room with a lot more older people and I feel like I'm a 4-year-old because I'm just like,
Mm-hmm.
why is everybody here 50? Like, come on. Can we, I'm trying to relate with everybody. I love you people. You are very intelligent people, but at the same time,
Mm-hmm.
can we not make me feel like I'm a child right now? Like, I
Mm-hmm.
have degrees on degrees. Can we not make me feel like a child?
Yeah.
But like those kind of things. But even being in those spaces and learning from these people is showing that I'm still growing, that I'm still moving to a different space than I was yesterday. And to put a cap on that and limit yourself does nothing but hurt you in the end. It keeps you
Yeah.
from exposing yourself to a broader sense of what our reality provides of us,
Mm-hmm.
a broader sense of what our lives can be because we decided to just say, oh, I'm done. I'm done growing. I'm grown. I can do whatever I want. Everything is established the way that I know it, and that's it. But guess what? Life still goes on outside of what your perspective is. And
Mm-hmm.
sometimes you need to just wake up to the fact that, oh, there's a lot more things. Yesterday, Pluto was a planet. Oh, today it's a dwarf star. Oh, wait, now it's just a dwarf planet. Oh, wait, it might be something else. It's a comet. What?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, perfect example, there was a time where cigarettes were healthy for you.
Exactly.
And like I don't like the term adult either. I'm kind of similar to you. I don't say I'm a growing adult. I turned into a verb. I say I'm adulting.
Yes.
And it's because that's what it is for me. It's not being, I don't think you are. Honestly, I still look at myself as the 12-year-old that doesn't know what the hell he's doing, just in a man's body that has responsibilities and a job. Like I go around my father who's in his 70s and I still feel like the teenager that I was when I was a kid, but then I look at, like I have a niece that just graduated college and I remember the day she was friggin' born, so it's like, growing up, I realized it's what you end up realizing, like your parents didn't know everything, even though you thought they did.
Mm-hmm.
They were learning as they went too. So that's normal. So yeah, I use the term adulting. And I think, like I said, you always learning because when you look at like bigotry and hypocrisy and ignorance, those are the people who stop trying to learn. Those are the people who stop trying to grow. They shut themselves off to growth, and that's what stems, and that's what creates that.
Yes, and I'm glad that you mentioned that, because the first thing that came to my mind was tradition. And not that I don't like the term, or I don't like traditions, like traditional like behaviors, events, and things like that, but I hate whenever I'm in like a place of work and we're just like, oh, this is just a tradition. But I'm just like, why can we not find an innovative way to embrace this tradition and still be inclusive of everybody, make sure that our voices are heard, to make sure that we're up to standard with a lot of things. Like, we don't have to stick to the traditional thing. That is just putting a cap on it. Like, how can we, like, if there's a festival, a traditional festival, that's great. We can do that. But when it comes to human behavior and we're trying to say, oh, this is the tradition, humans change every single day. Like, we evolve every single day. Like, our genetic code changes with everything that we do on every single day. So why should we try to make human behavior fit into one box?
Yeah, I hate when people say, oh, well, he's from a different time, or she's from a different time. Like, that's bullshit, and there was a time when I believed that, but that was when I was young and ignorant and stupid. Now that I'm older and I'm the age of these people who are from a different time, I realize, like, people I know and people I associate with are willing to learn, are willing to grow. That doesn't make sense. And here's another good example. Before life coaching, in life, I worked in a tech company, and one of the things I was trying to do was promote the change of language. Because for those who don't know anything about the tech world, there's a lot of very problematic language derived from the tech world that kind of came up from the beginning, terms that they're not comfortable, at least for me, and they're not comfortable for a lot of time. And even out of tech world, if you do anything, that's a perfect example is, when you whitelist or blacklist something, it's a very, blacklist is bad, whitelist is good. And that came from, racism and slavery and all that stuff in the past. That's where those terms derive from. So I was trying to work with my company, say, hey, let's change some of these terms, white hat hackers, black hat hackers, whitelist, blacklist. We use a term when you talk about, not as much anymore because hardware is different. But when you look at a computer, at one time you would have the master hard drive and a slave hard drive. And, like these, and even now when you talk about certain groups getting together, they're tribes. And, you have a tribe, you have a tribal chief. And, it's like, so there's a lot of this very appropriated language. I reached out to somebody in my company and say, hey, I'm just a nobody, but can we talk about this? And they that's what they literally said. Like, well, this is traditional language. There's nothing we can do about it. And I was like, well, no, when you talk like that, there's nothing you can do about it. Yeah, but there's nothing we can do about it. But then I was like, well, look at some of these other companies, because at the time, you look at some of these other tech companies and they've made some of the changes I was suggesting. It was in the news years ago that they made these changes, and I'm like, they did it. So that's a stupid that holds no water. That statement holds no water because it can be changed. We just need to affect change.
Exactly. Oh my gosh. Now I'm thinking about my days in housing, and because like on the university campus, whenever there's the split up between residence halls, like, oh, you have to have the all male, all female, and then because me being me, I'm like, so what do we do when it comes to transgender students? Well, I don't it's like, but there's a possibility that this can happen, right? Like, why don't we just make gender neutral resident halls throughout the entire campus? I get that, oh, the parents are going to be wild and upset because they think their kids are going to have sex. Their kids are having sex now. Like, they're fucking, okay? Your kids are fucking. There we go. The case is closed. Your daughter almost came back pregnant, but luckily at the time, as well in the state in that city that I was in, she can get an abortion for $400. She's good. She's good. Okay.
It gets
she
even
knows
more,
this.
It gets even more confusing when you throw the non-binary people into the mix too, because then where do they live?
Exactly. So I'm like, can we just not do these? Can we not play these games? Like, oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Anyways, before I go into my higher ed rant, because there's a lot of issues with higher ed that I need to get off my chest, but that comes someday.
Another show.
Oh, another show. um, well, you mentioned it a little bit earlier on in the conversation. I'm bringing
Hmm.
it back because we were talking about preferences and then also negotiations
Hmm.
of those preferences, but relationships themselves also
Hmm.
change over time. What are some of the things I know, like most definitely with you opening up your relationship with your husband, and then like even with some of the clients that you've seen,
Hmm.
what are some of the changes that you've noticed that some people have experienced, expressed to you, or you've experienced in terms of like where they were before and where they are today?
Yeah. So without giving too much away from about clients, because obviously I don't want to
Yeah.
give too much away. I'll give an example from my life. Because and this is something I like tell people because as a coach, I I coach from experience.
Hmm.
I want people to understand that it's like, yes, I coach to the LGBTQIA plus and the kink communities. I coach to them because I'm part of them. I understand them and I've been there. And I'm very, I sometimes will do education as well. And when I do that, I'm very strong on negotiation and consent. And that's because that's something that I know, because that's something I personally had to learn myself. When I first met my husband, I come from a very, very white, very Republican family who never talked about their feelings. And if you went to a therapist, you were weak. This is the mindset we had.
I'm sorry.
So I've grown up. Luckily, I've gotten out of it. But yeah, so when I met him, that was kind of where my mind was. He's very different than that. He's he's more like a socialist, and he's like, Greenpeace, and capitalism is terrible, and all cops are bad, and this is who he was, and this is everything that I was like, this is not me. But through being with him, and he taught me to communicate,
Hmm.
because I didn't know how to do it. I didn't know how to communicate. He taught me how to communicate. Or I shouldn't say taught me, but he allowed me to be comfortable and truthful and honest with myself, so I could be comfortable, truthful, and honest with him.
Hmm.
And he did it in a way that was judgment free. So because of him, I learned communication. I learned the idea that it's constant. It's not just like you do it once and it's over. It's daily, sometimes hourly. And because of him, like, when we first met, we were both very vanilla. We had ideas of kink, but we were very vanilla. But because we gained that comfort and that judgment free zone with each other so well, we were comfortable and willing enough to say, hey, these are some things I've been wanting to try for a while. How do you feel? Let's try it. Now we're fully into the kink community, and that's something that I learned while being with him. And when I became a life coach, it was honestly, and I will say this, I say this in pretty much every interview, and I'll say it to the day I die. The only reason I feel like I can do what I do is because he showed me what it was like to be, to do it correctly. And he kind of brought me into the light and kind of nurtured me to help me grow. So I say all that to say, coming from a very white, very Republican background, that therapy was weakness. I love a good cry now, and I can
Yes.
I can learn. I've learned from my past. I've learned from my upbringing, and I've become a better person because of it. And not because of my upbringing, but because of my learning. Actually, no, I'll rephrase that. I think I have become a better person from my upbringing because I learned what I don't want to be
Mm.
from my upbringing. I look at my parents, I look at my family, I think I never want to be that just like that. I want to be better. So yeah, I think I did learn from that. But I think I did learn a lot from him, and I think I learned a lot from being in a relationship where we were truthful, honest, and upfront and judgment free with each other, so we could get to those points in our relationship where we can say, hey, this is how I feel, this is what I think, this is my feelings on that, this is what I want to try, and not feel like either of us is gonna be made fun of or judged or looked down upon because we want to try something quote unquote weird or different.
Mm. Oh, all I can hear is the power of a safe space.
Oh, you have no idea. Oh.
Like, and And it's a safe space is frightening to any person who's never experienced one.
I mean, in
And
fairness, a safe space can be frightening to people who have experienced them too, because it's a lot of vulnerability there.
that's true. Because when I think about when I engage with people and I let them know, hey, I'm not going to judge you, or even giving people, letting them know that you can say no, like you have
Mhm.
the permission to say no, because some
Yes.
people don't believe that it's okay for them to say no to certain things, or like they don't want to let somebody down, or they feel like if they reject somebody it makes them a bad person. I'm like, no, say no. It's, I want you to
Mhm.
give me this feedback, let me know, like if, like myself, if someone's not interested in me or what have you, I want you to just say it. I'm not going to be hurt by that. That lets me
Yeah.
know, okay, do not engage, or oh, we cannot do this specific sexual act because you're not comfortable with that, and I'm not going to force you into doing that.
Yeah.
Or if you like, even with my regular, one of the conversations we had earlier on, because I told him, like, for me, for if you're looking for a friends with benefits, and I believe in being a friend with this person, so I'm going to ask you about your life. I'm going to ask you about what's going on and have these conversations with you, because I actually do want to build that friendship with you.
100%.
And he mentioned that, oh no, I don't like, this is after a while. It's like, I don't like it when you ask me these personal questions. I'm like, okay, well, let's change this, verbiage that we're using. At least for myself, we can just be fuck buddies, and
Mhm.
we can just leave this at surface level conversations and sex. I'm comfortable with that. That's perfectly fine with me. At least now I know what your boundaries are. And
Mhm.
like, not I don't really get that level of conversation or communication with the general person, because they're either too uncomfortable to have these conversations, or they don't have that permission. They feel as though they don't have that permission, or they're afraid of the space that they're in to approach vulnerability with another person.
Mhm. Yeah. It's, since I've, like I said, we are newly open, but because of that, I've been on the dating field, and God, it's as bad as it was when I was in my 20s. Probably worse because now we have all these apps where, you can just get unsolicited dick pics like every 5 seconds.
Oh my God.
But I people, it's funny how some people, when in my profiles I say I'm looking for friends, preferably with benefits. I want to get to know a person because random hookups are not my thing, and I feel like a better connection when there is a connection.
Mhm.
Intimacy is better for me when there is the connection. If assuming some of these guys even read the profile, they come into this, and when they realize that when I said friends with benefits, I actually meant friends who may happen to sleep with each other.
Mhm.
And it was going to be more than just, like you said, surface and then hook up. They're gone. They're just gone. Like I'm talking to this one guy right now, and we've been talking for a couple of weeks now. We're actually going on our first date on Friday, and we have not yet at all, like in the last couple of weeks, it's never gone sexual. It's never gone into like sexting or, talking about anything. I think at the very beginning we may have mentioned what our ideal preferences are, but then from there it's just been strictly getting to know each other.
Mm.
And for me, it's been so fulfilling to have that, because it's like that's what I'm looking for. That's what I want,
And I know, like, even with how I engage with some people on the apps and whatnot, I really do look into conversations, because, being, I do consider myself a conversationalist, because look, we're on the we're having a conversation on the podcast. Look,
Yeah.
we got one season down, so I'm comfortable enough to say I'm a conversationalist. But like, when I'm communicating with people on apps, I realized that one of the things that I just genuinely do not want to do is teach somebody how to communicate anymore.
Right.
Like, there was a point in time where I will be like, hey, okay, I'm trying to figure out what you're saying. This did not come across the way that I was receiving it. Like, what can we do together to ensure that we are communicating just fine? Like, give them the language so that it betters our communication with each other. But these days, I'm just like, I just cannot do it anymore because of having to do that on a ongoing basis for so long. It gets tiring. And I know that's kind of bad on my side because it's like you cannot ask for a communicator if you are not willing to give that service to somebody. But I'm also of that mindset. I prefer somebody that's already built. So if I could find someone that's built, we're good.
Yeah. I mean, you know, it's so funny for me because I do sex education because I am a coach. I'm basically teaching people how to communicate on a regular basis anyways.
Mhm.
So when it comes to a relationship, for me, it doesn't bother me as much, but I like there to be at least a certain level of understanding.
Mhm.
Like if I had to educate me from 15 years ago, I wouldn't do it. I wouldn't do it. But if I could, you know, if I could find someone who has a base understanding that I can work off of,
Mhm.
I'm happy to do it. And I think, well, to bring it back to relationships, I think when it comes to relationships, if you find that person that you communicate with, sometimes it is worth going the extra mile to kind
Yes.
of fill in those gaps. But, you know, you're not going to have those relationships if you're coming from different areas, different places, completely different places. And, you know, you're basically starting from scratch.
Mhm.
That person still has a lot of learning to do, and they can do it, but they maybe need to find a better way to do it than who they're partnering with at the time.
I definitely agree with you there. Like, most definitely with like the base level. Oh, we're good. It's like for me, like one of the things I'm doing my best to control is having to bring work home, and anything that makes me feel as though I'm working,
Mhm.
I just I don't want to partake in it. So it's like even whenever I like one of the things I love to ask people is, "How are you?" and
Mhm.
see how they respond. And it's not like if they respond good, well, whatever. That's not the purpose of me doing that. It's to see if they are willing to further that conversation forward. Are they willing to ask me about myself too? Are they willing to build on,
Mhm.
like if I ask them, what are their interests outside of sex? Because I don't want to just jump into that, even though most people, when they
Yeah.
ask me this question, because I will ask them, like, they'll ask, what are you into? I'm like, are you asking generally or sexually? Sometimes they say both. Sometimes they explicitly say sex, or they just say generally.
Mhm.
But whenever I ask people that, it's giving me an opportunity to dive into their interests, to see what they like about those interests. What is, why are they into those things? When was the last time they were able to partake in that? If they're a traveler, what places did you go to? Like, let's build this conversation so that I get to know you and you
Mhm.
have information about me too, that we can get to know each other.
Yeah.
But sometimes it doesn't even get to that point.
No.
Like sometimes somebody might just say, "Oh, I'm good." And I'm like, "Okay, that's great to know. So what are you up to?" And if they're just like a one word response at that point, I'm just like, "Okay, well, it was nice chatting." And I'm going on to some other kind of conversation.
Oh yeah, I start anytime I start any conversation on these apps just with how's it going, and that is kind of to see how they respond.
Mhm.
Most of the time, you get a not bad or good in you, and that's usually like the base. That's like the bare minimum I'm looking
Right.
for. But sometimes you get a response where they actually tell you something, and like when that happens, that's when my brain perks,
Mhm.
because that's a person that wants to talk, and that's a person that's okay, open to just having communication and having a conversation, and not just looking to get into bed. Because I will say I learned very quickly, when you ask what do you like to do, you have to be
Mhm.
very specific that you don't necessarily mean in bed. You
Right.
know, or when you tell someone, hey, can you send me a picture, you have to specifically be specific and say not of your dick.
Exactly.
These are
If
things I learned very quickly on. So when I find someone when I can say ask those things for, and they get it right, then I'm like, okay, this is somebody I'm that seems to be worth pursuing at least a little bit longer.
Exactly. Like, just to remind people, stop sending random ass dick pics.
Oh
But
my God.
like even like before we even sat down to have this conversation, I sent somebody just hi, just nothing
Mhm.
really into that. And the message I got back was a dick pic. And I'm just like, I said hello.
Mhm.
I did not think I was going to be saying hello to a dick. Can I get a person? Like one of my rules, because so many people are fixated on news. One of my rules is because, like, for me, I've become like I used to just not send them or anything like that, but that was mostly out of hurt, to be real,
Mhm.
because of some
Mhm.
insecurities from back in the day. But I worked on that. A nude pic is whatever it is, but I refuse to send a nude picture to somebody who does not send me a face picture, because I'm like, you're asking for me to send a personal and private part of myself, but you're unwilling to send something that is available to the public to see. If we're in a grocery store, I can see your face. I can't see your dick, your ass, or anything like that unless you airdrop me. But I don't have that available on my phone, because look, y'all motherfuckers are gross. So no airdropping available around here. But
Mhm.
I'm not seeing your penis. I'm not seeing your asshole. I'm not seeing these things. I can see your face. However, on these apps, because that is the norm, I'm expected to respond to a dick pic with an ass pic or with a tit pic or with whatever kind of picture they deem necessary for
Mhm.
their pleasure. That's not how that works around here.
No. Yeah. And it's funny because, I'll get people who like reach out and like again, and it's always these faceless profiles where it's either, shot from like the neck down. So
Mhm,
it focuses on like the chest and the crotch, or it's just no picture at all.
mhm.
And I'll get message like sometimes I'll get a hello first, but before I even have a chance to respond, there's 5 dick pics. And I'm like, thank you. Your dick is lovely. Can I see your face? And then I won't hear from them.
Exactly. That's the that's the best way to get rid of a creep. Just ask for a face pic. That's
Yeah.
that's that's it.
if,
Like
if you get no advice from this episode, that's the advice we can give you.
like this past weekend, I decided to be petty, and I was like, it's weird how, because somebody was sending dick pics, and I was asking for a face pic, and when people immediately respond, you're just like you're clearly on your phone. So it's like I decided, okay, I'll wait a good 15 minutes. If they respond, oh, they don't. So I'm like, let me be petty. So I was like, it's weird how when you ask for a face pic, people instantly disappear. And then they're like, oh no, I was at work, blah, 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 blah. You cool with sending the nude? I was like, no, I already told you I need a
Yeah.
face pic. Glad to know that struck a nerve.
Yeah.
Oh God. People are
I want to see this head before you see that head.
right. But I will admit, I do like a good torso photo. I really do.
I mean, who
But
doesn't like a good 6-pack?
I'm a body lover. So it's like
Me too.
regardless of what it is, like my exception, because some people are very DL and all this other stuff. I'm like, okay, if you can send me a body pic, I don't really care what size you are, because I like all sizes. So it's
Mhm.
like if I have a physical reaction or arousal from the body pic that you send me, we can meet up.
Mm.
But still don't ask for that nude, because you're not getting that without a face.
Yeah, I'm all fine for seeing the profiles without the faces in it. I get being discreet. I get it. It's fine. But when we're in private DMs, I'm not gonna. What am I gonna do? Go in and just post your photo. I met this person on Grinder, and this is what they look like. Come on.
Right. I'm like, we're in 2022. People are not outing people like that anymore. Then I had to tell somebody, like, the only people that I know, that I've seen online that have been outed were people who either abused somebody, lied about their
Mhm.
status, and they ended up catching something. That's the only
Mhm.
time someone's ever been outed, or if it was a woman. Only
Mhm.
time. But
Mhm.
I'm like, most of the people that I've experienced online, offline, who were talking about anybody's business, those were the only reasons. Like, and I'm
Yeah.
like, I don't care enough to post about our interactions online, because one, I don't care for like, of course, I'm on the podcast talk about my sex life all the time, but they don't even know exactly who the fuck I'm fucking.
Yeah. Yeah. They don't need to.
Not at all. Not one damn.
No.
But anyways, We are running out of time, so I'm going to do one never have I ever before we end
Okay.
this episode. So, never have I ever had sex without any kissing involved.
I have never done that.
Really?
Really? I came close once, but it was one of those fuck 'em and flee type of situations. He specifically said, I don't do kissing. He's like, I just don't do it. I'm like, oh, okay, I get it. It can be very intimate. But we never got together. So I'm very much I'm a tactile person myself. Like I need to kiss, I need to cuddle, I need to caress, I need to touch, I need to smell. These are things that I need to enjoy myself. So yeah, no, I've never done that. I don't think I ever want to either, to be honest.
I have. And it's not that I'm not willing to kiss people during sex. I just have to have a sense of passion with somebody if I want to kiss them. Like every now and again, like with my regular, we have not kissed. But sometimes during sex, I'm just like, I could probably kiss them. Actually, there was somebody I recently hooked up with during November. And this person I extremely want to kiss, but I did not want to push that boundary with them because I didn't know if they are into kissing. But the way that we were looking into each other's eyes, and I'm just like, you are putting your lips right here too frequently. And I'm just like, can I just like turn my face over and just like, what are you trying to do, good sir? What is going on here? Because the energy I'm feeling is telling me that what's up? But other than that, I like that person definitely wanted to kiss. There's people in the past that I've made out with during sex and things like that, but I'll say a majority of my sexual experiences without kissing.
And you know what? To put a little bow on the episode, that's why you need to negotiate.
I agree. Good point. Well, now that the episode is over, Wesley, do you have any last words that you would like to share with the audience before I close this out?
Just don't. I live by the Wheaton rule, which is don't be a dick. I think everybody can learn from that, but I think also on top of that, trust yourself, trust your feelings, and trust your partners. Not everyone is perfect. Not everyone's going to be perfect. Nobody's perfect. We know that. We already talked about that. We're gonna make mistakes. It's okay. Don't let it bother you. Learn from it. Give yourself the grace. Give your partner the grace to make a mistake and to learn from those mistakes, and then grow from it.
Absorb that message, everyone. Wesley, thank you so much for being on the podcast. I greatly appreciate you. And to the audience, thank you all so much for listening to the Soliloquy podcast, where we step out and speak on sexuality. And just in case no one else told you this today, you are beautiful, you are worthy of happiness and joy, you are enough and then some. You may not live up to the expectations of others, but that is okay. You are only required to walk in your own shoes. May each day you live lead you towards abundance. With that said, love you all and see you next episode. Bye.
Thank you for listening to the Soliloquy podcast, where we step out and speak on sexuality. You can subscribe to the podcast through your favorite podcasting app and find us on the web at www.soliloquy.com. That's www.heauxliloquy.com. Share the podcast with your friends and join the conversation.